Thank you, Father, that you are near us, Lord. Thank you that you are close to us and that we can come to you with all our burdens and all our cares, Lord. And you're there, you listen, and you care, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, this is testimony night tonight. Isn't that great? The second testimony night that we've had in this group, and it's a privilege to be a part of this. So much fun. The guy giving the testimony tonight is a good friend of mine. In fact, I would consider him my best friend, next to Jesus. And my wife. But I've walked with him the past 5-6 years, and I've seen so much growth in him, and it's just amazing. And it's my privilege to introduce you to Danny. Come on up, Danny.
Microphone, nice, that's good. I'm never really nervous, right? Until about 9 seconds before, and then it's like getting me to throw up now, and, all the jitters. I'm like a diesel truck in the wintertime. It's hard starting, but once I'm warmed up, it becomes that much easier. I'm going to talk about some really, some would call horrific things, and I may laugh or I may use humor, and I may even cry. I get very emotional sometimes, but these things, this is a celebration. These things aren't hard. They're all victories now. And I've never actually started like this, and this is probably the hardest part. Oh, man. When I was, and these are my notes, 4 sentences. There's no notes. My prayer every time I speak is simple. It's, Lord, guide my tongue. I don't want it to be me. It's my story, but I want it to be about him. When I was a child, I was sexually abused. And I've never actually said that in a group before. This January, I'm celebrating 10 years sobriety. So there's a lot of ground to cover there, and I got to do it relatively fast. So there's a God-shaped hole inside of every person, and I knew these things to be true, but in my family it was church at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and there was nothing there. Like anything that I learned, I got on TV, and it was in the 80s, and at least at that time there was still some Christian content. So at Christmas time, I learned about this Jesus fella. That's how I knew him. He was just a man, and a good man, and that's all I knew through cartoons and claymation, Christmas classics, if you will. I didn't get saved. Probably should do it like this. Until I was 16, I got baptized, and but there was nothing. There was no follow through. There was no nothing. It was very, what's the word? Very prodigal son. Very Jonas spirit. Just run, hide, act like a fool. I didn't like drugs. That wasn't my thing. I didn't get into alcohol until I was 21. So I was a late bloomer, but I made up for that awful fast. I absolutely fell in love with alcohol. I wouldn't say I was an introvert. I'm always kind of this guy. But there was the injury from that childhood trauma that kind of colored everything up to that point. And then when I found alcohol, it seemed to make it better, unless I was really dwelling on it, and then it made me want to fight. What it was like, yeah. That's what my notes say. What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. And Jesus is the center of all of it. The bad, the good, the change, everything. I was an alcoholic through and through. Some people say you can't come out of that you always have, once you're an alcoholic, you have to raise your hand and say, hi, my name's Danny, I'm an alcoholic. I don't buy into that. The first page in the book, Big Book, says that we are 100 people who have fully recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and that's what happened. And it happened because Jesus led me to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he used that to learn who he was, to learn who I was, and then show me how to recover and then remove that thing fully from me. Before that, it was terrible. But Jesus was in it. He was in it the whole time. My drinking, like I was on a accelerated program. My drinking just, once I started, I fell in love with it, and it just got worse and worse and worse, leaps and bounds. I had booze everywhere. I was stealing my own money. I had in the basement of my house, I had an unfinished piece of drywall behind the furnace. And these are funny things, so I can laugh about them. And I could unzip it and move it, and it was like a hidden bar. Like there was 2x4s in there, and they were all empty, but there was bottles everywhere. I had, one time I went for an oil change, and when you're hiding it from everybody, including your wife, you hide it. You hide it everywhere. I went for an oil change one time, and the mechanic handed me a Mickey that I had hidden in my engine block. And he saw complete insanity because it was 90 degrees, and I took it, whatever was left in it, and I drank it. I was like, oh, thanks, man. I drank this boiling bottle of alcohol. And I was grateful, and my brand new son was in the backseat. Absolute insanity. And it just kept doing, I thought managing this thing was, okay, I'm a dad now. My son's new 3 months, 6 months, then into AA. Managing this thing was me going to the liquor store, taking him with me, leaving him safely locked in the car while I went in and got alcohol, and then drove home. Because I can't drink it at home, because that's not allowed anymore, to drink it as quickly as I can in the vehicle. And 2.6 at that point was about 30 seconds. And then go in the house and nothing, just normal life, right? Just normal life. And that was normal life. That was, my wife only knew that guy at that point. So 10 years of our relationship. I bounce back and forth a lot, I apologize. We had a son, I had a surgery. Both things scared me. And I knew that everything was going to change. I didn't want anything to change, but I knew it was going to happen whether I wanted it or not. It came to a head one night, and looking back on it, I'm really glad that it did. And I've got 100 stories of the stupid things I did drunk. I just gave you kind of a glimpse of the big ones. But what it turned into for me and my wife was we were like ships passing in the night. I was never fully invested in anything that she wanted to say because I wanted to get away from her so I could behave the way I wanted to behave. And she was probably so mad at me that she was in love with me just a little bit more than she wanted me out of the house probably, which was the only reason I was there. She must have seen something, glimpses, because she always fought for me. And I'm glad that she did. Anyways, when it all came to a head, I was blacked out. Son was in the crib, crying, 6 months old. I woke up, she was standing over me, and the fight was on. And it was the last ultimatum. She beat me up. right? Like she's just a little farm girl, but she beat me up pretty good. With a MacBook from 2007, so it wasn't like the really thin, it was like the thick one, like and she hits hard, especially with the steel or aluminum MacBook Pro. That thing was, it hurt. She said, I'm taking our son and we're leaving and you're never gonna see us again. And I didn't know what to do. So I just kinda, you sober up quick after your wife beats you up and then gives you those kinds of ultimatums. So I knee-jerked into AA, and I thought, hey, and it was more insane thinking, I thought, hey, what a great place to leave as often as I want, because there's a meeting in Spruce, Stony, West Edmonton, there's hundreds of them. What a great way to get out of the house and then go drink and not go to a meeting, or go to a meeting just enough to hear something so I could report back to her and do that thing. So I did that for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months. And, but in AA, these old timers, everybody just said, keep coming back. I remember getting accosted by guys, because I wanted to be the last one in, the first one out, but there's always the smokers that kind of hung out by the door, and they kind of wrangle you into conversations, and they said, really, they sound stupid, but with my insane thinking, it was the only things I could hear is just keep coming back. These slogans, fake it till you make it. And I remember sitting in a room around all these people that seemed so happy telling me how they got sober, and I'm thinking, you're a liar, and you're a liar, and you're a liar, and you're a liar, and you're a liar, because I can't do this thing. It doesn't make sense. So I just kept going back, and I just kept faking it. And then they introduced the steps. You keep hearing these things that they're talking about, these steps. Pardon me, I shouldn't cough into the microphone, hey. And I started looking at these things, and I couldn't get past step 3 because I had no concept of who God was. And their version, and I'm not slighting AA, they saved my life. That's why I brought these, because when I go to quote it, I mess it up and then I feel like a hammerhead. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. That's what this one says. Theirs says, as we understand him. I had no understanding. I had nothing. And I remember sitting in a meeting and we're talking about step 3, and everybody, it's just free flow and it's so easy for everybody. And then they get to me and it's like, and the one lady across the room just said, it's simple, just talk about who God is to you. And I had no concept, and I was really mad at her because she called me out in the meeting. And I made a decision that night to figure out who I was going to turn my will and my life over to. One of the funniest conversations me and my wife ever had was I was in AA. Now it's probably under a year, around a year, first birthday, something like that. And we're in Bruce Grove and we're turning. And I said to her, I think we should start going to church. And she turned and looked at me and she's like, are you drinking again? And I said, no. I said, these steps are talking about these things that I don't understand at all, and I can't share, and I can't be in there because I don't feel like I'm part of these guys. And she said absolutely sure, and that was 10 years ago too. And we started at the Alliance Church in Stony Plain, and the Christian walk evolves too. It was brand new. It was milk. I didn't know anything. It was so basic. I should have been in the same class as my son. And it would have been fine. I would have learned not more, but I would have learned quicker, probably sitting with him for a few years just to get some of that. I'm just trying to the next piece. I'm trying to, like, there was a gap there where there was recovery, there was learning who Christ was, what he meant to me, creating that relationship, but it was so frustrating too, because I wanted it all right there. My alcoholic thinking, I want everything that's new right now. So there was a lot of frustration. It's hard to fill in 10 years. I did have one relapse. I should be at 11 years. So at about that time, my wife came home and she just knew. Like it's like a different person in front of you. And she just knew, and she said, "What did you do?" I can't even tell you what I said. It was like snapshots. I drank the way, I could have died. I drank the way that I had drank when I used to drink all the time. So I drank a 2-6 in like 30 seconds, and then after not doing it for a year. So I just turned off, right? I was awake, but I wasn't actually awake. Blackout, yeah. That was the incomprehensible demoralization. There's a spot where you need to get to so that when they start really talking to you about these steps, they stick. And I needed to get to that point. I don't recommend it, but I need to get to that point. My wife knew what to do. I had a sponsor. She called him. She said, "He's drunk. I'm not dealing with him. He's your problem." She drove me to a meeting. She opened the door. It's downstairs. She literally just went, pew. And and it was the exact thing that she was told to do. It was the exact thing that I told her to do. And she saved my life. Christ is through this whole thing. I have to keep going back to that. And that's the hard part to remember, because I was in AA so long. To share in generalities is so easy for me. But to tell you guys that Christ is in this thing when I'm being demoralized and embarrassed through my own actions, that's hard. That's hard. But he was there knowing that these steps are going to work, but my relationship with him is going to be so much better when I come out the other side. I came out of that, a few really hard conversations. Literally the next night, my sponsor had me speaking at a roundup. Oh yeah, speaking at a roundup, and all I could do was tell him how I'm back at one day and I started again, and everything that I did, it was like more humiliation, but it's that next step into real recovery, and that's where the work began. I got the big book. I started doing the steps, going to church, reading the Bible, understanding what I could, asking the questions of the people around me. I never really had, I gotta be careful. Ended up taking charge of I don't want to bounce too much back and forth, of the AA program in the Remand Center, and I did that for 3 years minimum. It could have been longer. And that was amazing, because to be with inmates where there's no pretense, there's no difference. I just landed on on the other side of the fence. They landed on this side, I landed on this side. There's no reason I didn't land on that side. Another couple weeks, another month, another year, I would have been on that side. There was, Christ was in all of that. One of the best church services was with one of your trainees in one of the rooms there, and it was amazing. And then I had to follow up with my AA stuff, and I felt like I was lagging because his church service was so amazing. There were times where we would talk about the God of our understanding in the third step, but we'd be in the weight room or the outside room where they played basketball, kind of outside room, where they played basketball, and Christ was there. It was this, but it was in a prison, so it was different. It was raw. I feel like I don't even really have the words to describe it. I had to lay that down, and because if in AA, part of the volunteer structures, if you have something for too long, you could become prideful and you could start to ruin this thing. I had to lay it down. It sounds like somebody has picked it up, so that's absolutely amazing. Always going to church, always reading my Bible, listening. I found this Bible Is app. I find that listening to it, whether I'm falling asleep, like it soaks in. I do like to read it, but the listening, I could listen to it all day long. COVID, okay, this thing happened, this COVID thing happened, and I'm doing all these right things, and that sounds silly to say, but like all the churches closed, and I'm confused, and no matter how anybody feels about it, I was in a church where not only did that happen, I started to realize that God gives you discernment. And again, this is a new thing, because I'm an idiot. Like I feel like I'm only ever looking this far ahead at any given point. So to start seeing things further down the road and wondering, this is weird, why is this happening? It was new to me, and it was confusing, and I didn't like it, it was scary. And you don't hear people talk about COVID as a blessing. I know I left out such a big piece. I'm just trying to move quickly. I don't want to steal everybody's time. But COVID was a blessing because it showed me that our family, my family, wasn't where we needed to be, that we needed to move. And it wasn't necessarily that what the church was doing with COVID, it was the things that were missing in the teaching. And that comes from reading your Bible and a relationship with Christ. And I started to realize these things, and it all kind of hit at the same time. I'm like, hey, we have to move. We moved. There was no church. Church moved to online, so you kind of found what you could find. And before, a year or two before COVID hit, 2 years before COVID hit, we were at the Herb Jameson Center doing messages and stuff. So I had ran into the Connecting Streams group, and so we decided to take our ministry that we had and move it on to Zoom, and we've been doing that for 2 years now, and it's been amazing. Iron sharpens iron. We do messages. Everybody takes turn. Everybody shares. Everybody speaks. It's created such a bond, and that was one of the prayers that I had when COVID kind of started. There was a lot of fear at first. I didn't have any Christian friends. I didn't have any Christian community. So when everything shut down, it was me and my family, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I felt extremely alone. One of my prayers was, I need a family, and you get what you ask for. The Zoom meeting was our church. I hadn't laid other than eyes. I hadn't seen anybody really in bodily form at all. So then this place opens, New Destiny opens up, and I get to start. Like, I'd only seen Rhonda, I think, once or twice before. I had never seen you. We saw each other because we were neighbors, but not that often. Jarvis, I met you here. Like, I met everybody here. So there was no, when we first started, there was nobody coming in. It was literally just us. And again, that was a blessing too. Grant, I met you here for the first time. We worked together, but I met you here. New Destiny has been a blessing in the sense that it's grown my Christian family from none to pretty well everybody that's sitting here. Rob, same thing, right? I'd never met you before. I only saw you on Zoom. I know I'm forgetting so many things. How does a person, and this is where I started, how does a person forgive somebody that's hurt them more, or that the person hasn't done anything to that person? How does a person do that? I started saying I was sexually abused. So I go into AA, and that was another meeting. And I remember, like, they could tell I got red, I got angry. I wasn't telling anybody anything. How do you do that? Like, I wanted to scream at the person that was Cherry. How do you do that? Right? How do you honestly do that? That thing that colored my life, probably I used it as an excuse to behave the way that I wanted to behave, drink the way that I wanted to drink, used it as a defense, even though I wasn't ever talking about it. That thing probably colored my whole life until I got into the program. Because in my head, I was using it as the excuse, along with a few other things. There's always resentments with your mom, right? Like, always. But that was probably actually the main one. The only way that first of all, resentment's going to kill a drunk, because it's going to get stuck in their head. It's going to start spinning over and over and over, and I'm going to drink again at that point. I don't know what to do with these big things, these big skeletons. But going through this program and learning who Christ was, the only true way that I could get rid of that resentment and move on is through Christ, through that forgiveness. That's the only way that I could move through that thing. That hurt was the main thing. That was the main excuse that I was using to act like a victim and behave the way that I wanted to behave and do all the things that I wanted to do. Christ removed that. Like, it's gone. It's gone. It's full forgiveness. The other thing that you get taught, though, is that the people that do injure you, they don't get the same access into your life. You can forgive them. And the forgiveness is for me, forgiving them, so I'm not holding on to that thing, so it's not got a stranglehold around my neck. But they don't get that access again, right? It's complete forgiveness. I can't remember how it was said, so I'm probably not going to say, because I don't want to mess it up. I want you to eat, just not at my table, right? You're forgiven. Is that how that goes, right? But you don't have the same access to me. Jesus has removed so many things in my life. The insane thinking with alcohol, I'm sorry, I'm going to wrap up real quick here, but things just keep popping into my head. I couldn't not think about it. I couldn't not get drunk once, 2, 3 times a day, hungover, passed out, drunk again, like as quickly as I could. That chain, those snares, that noose, however you want to say it, that thing is dead and gone. He's removed it root and branch for me, to the point where, and again, I don't recommend these things. I have my trigger alcohol in my house and it has absolutely no power. There's nothing there. Like, my wife's a normal drinker. I still don't know what that is. But she'll have like half a drink poured out and I'm like, oh, that's terrible. That's alcohol abuse, but haha. it's not even like I can open the cabinet and there's coffee stuff in there. There's no draw anymore. Christ has removed it completely. Same with my, at the exact same time, my addiction to cigarettes, completely gone. I used to smoke 1.5 to 2.5 packs a day. I used to track it. It was a game, right? When I first quit, and it got so high, I was kind of disgusted with myself about how much money I was spending and then how much money I was saving, and still not having that extra money. But he removed that addiction to cigarettes. Root and branch, it's gone. There's things that he hasn't removed, but there's things that are less. I was talking to Bruce on the way here. There was a man that was like, I have anger issues. And I want things gone now. And it makes me mad that they're not gone now. But they're better. He's removing it. And it's his timing, it's not my timing. There was a car accident and all the construction on the Yellowhead. And normally I'm like, ah! I watched a gentleman pull in beside me, and he was smashing on his steering wheel and screaming, and he flicked something that made his windshield wipers go off, right? And I started laughing because I'm like, I know exactly where he is. And now that his windshield wipers went off, he's more mad, but I'm laughing because I'm like, I used to do that, right? Because of something so stupid. And God's showing me how dumb I can be by having this gentleman merging beside me on the highway and showing me how foolish my anger is. He's not taking it away fully, but he does things like that to show me that, you know, that's not how you behave. My relationship with Christ, I don't even know what to say. In the past 3 years, everything's grown. It's turned into service work. I've had a family grow up around me. The other problem I have is finishing. When I'm talking, I don't ever really know how to wrap it up. Like I want to just drop the mic, but I'm not going to do it. It's my relationship with Christ. And I adore it. And that's the only note that I wrote on here. And that's the hardest part to share because I was so used to leaving Christ out of it when I talk. But Jesus is the center of all of it. Yes. Like every piece. He was there when I was a child. He was there when I was running from him, when I was cursing, when I was acting like a fool, when I was drinking, when I was destroying my family. He was there. And he's there now, but the difference is now I'm not running from him. Now we have a relationship that I completely adore because I understand that he is the most important thing in my life. And I'm going to stop talking now because the next thing is going to sound way worse probably and stupid. So I did it. I told you I was going to do it. Thanks, guys.